I still remember the exact words she used. They're burned into my memory like a brand on cattle, searing and permanent. Get out, you uneducated trash. You're nothing but a pest in my house. The venom in Madison's voice could have killed a rattlesnake. She stood there in her designer dress, probably cost more than most people make in a month, looking down at me like I was something she'd scrape off her expensive Italian shoes. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed toward the door of what used to be my son's home, but was now apparently her domain. And my son? My own flesh and blood, the boy I'd raised with these two hands, worked 3 jobs to put through college? He just laughed. Actually laughed. Like watching his wife humiliate his mother was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Mom, you heard her, David said, not even looking at me directly. Maybe it's time you found your own place. Madison and I need our space.
Space.
27 years I'd lived in that house after my late husband died. 27 years of memories, of raising David as a single mother, of sacrificing everything so he could have a better life than mine. And now I needed to give them space. I looked around the living room one last time. The worn sofa where David used to curl up next to me watching cartoons. The kitchen table where I'd helped him with homework every night until he graduated high school. The family photos on the mantel, though I noticed Madison had already started replacing them with professional shots of just the two of them. I understand, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. I'll pack my things. Madison's laugh was sharp and cruel. Don't take too long about it. The movers are coming tomorrow to redecorate. Redecorate. They were erasing me before I was even gone. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, former bedroom, and started putting my life into cardboard boxes. 43 years of marriage to David's father. 27 years of widowhood. Photos, books, my grandmother's quilt, the jewelry box my husband made me for our first anniversary. Everything that mattered, everything that made me me, reduced to 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd just inherited $20 million. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a call from a lawyer in Chicago. My great-uncle Harold, a man I'd met exactly twice in my life, had passed away and left me his entire fortune. Apparently, he'd been tracking the family for years, keeping tabs on everyone through private investigators. He'd watched me struggle to raise David alone, seen me work multiple jobs, witnessed my quiet dignity through all the hardships. Your great-uncle was very specific in his instructions, the lawyer had explained. He wanted his money to go to someone who understood the value of hard work and genuine character. He said you were the only member of the family who'd never asked him for anything. I'd been planning to tell David about the inheritance. I'd imagined his face lighting up, imagined how proud he'd be, how we'd celebrate together. Maybe take a family vacation. Maybe help him and Madison buy a bigger house. Maybe finally relax for the first time in my adult life. But as I packed my belongings while my daughter-in-law insulted me from downstairs, make sure she doesn't steal anything, David, I realized they didn't deserve to know. They'd made their choice. They'd chosen cruelty over kindness, appearances over substance, and Madison's toxic worldview over family loyalty. So I kept my mouth shut. The next morning, I loaded my car with what fit and donated the rest to Goodwill. Madison stood in the doorway watching me, arms crossed, looking satisfied with her victory. David was already at work, couldn't even be bothered to say goodbye to the woman who'd given up everything for him. Don't think about coming back, Madison called out as I pulled away. We're changing the locks.
I drove straight to the bank.
I'd like to wire transfer some funds, I told the manager. I need to buy a house. The beach house I'd found was perfect. Not too big, not too small. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a wraparound deck that looked out over the Pacific Ocean. It was furnished, move-in ready, and the seller was motivated. Cash talks, and $20 million speaks fluent conversation. Within 48 hours, I owned it outright. The first week was strange. I'd wake up to the sound of waves instead of traffic. I'd make coffee and sit on the deck, watching pelicans dive for fish while the sun painted the sky in colors that seemed impossible. For the first time in decades, nobody needed anything from me. Nobody expected me to cook or clean or worry or sacrifice. I was just free. I started taking long walks on the beach. I bought books and actually had time to read them. I discovered that I loved cooking for myself, really cooking, not just throwing together quick meals between shifts. I planted a small garden and watched things grow without having to nurture anyone else first. But the real transformation was internal. For years, I'd accepted other people's definitions of who I was. I was just a widow, just a mother, just a cleaning lady, just someone who never finished college. I'd let Madison's words and David's indifference convince me that maybe I really was less than. Maybe I really didn't deserve respect or consideration or basic human decency. The beach house taught me different. I started volunteering at the local literacy center, helping adults learn to read. These were people society had written off: immigrants, high school dropouts, people who'd slipped through the cracks. But they had dreams and dignity and stories that would break your heart and rebuild it stronger. Working with them reminded me that education isn't about degrees or fancy words. It's about curiosity, perseverance, and the courage to keep growing. I also began learning. At 68 years old, I enrolled in online classes: art history, marine biology, creative writing. Turns out, having $20 million gives you the freedom to discover who you might have been if life hadn't required you to be someone else first. I made friends with my neighbors, a retired teacher named Dorothy and her husband Frank, a former Navy SEAL. They invited me to their book club, their bridge games, their grandchildren's birthday parties. These people saw me as I was, not as what I lacked. They valued my opinions, laughed at my stories, and treated me like I mattered. For the first time in my adult life, I understood what it felt like to be respected. 3 weeks into my new life, my phone rang. Mom. David's voice was strained, unfamiliar. Mom, we need to talk. Hello, David. Look, Madison thinks maybe we were too hasty. About you leaving. She's been thinking, and maybe we could work something out. You could come back, maybe help around the house, like before. I watched a seagull land on my deck railing. It cocked its head at me, as if it was waiting to hear what I'd say. Help around the house like before? Yeah, cooking, cleaning, maybe some babysitting when we have kids. Madison's been stressed trying to manage everything herself. Madison's been stressed. Not "we miss you," or "we made a mistake," or "I'm sorry my wife called you uneducated trash." Madison was stressed because she had to do her own housework. What made you change your mind? I asked. Well, honestly, money's been tight. Madison's not working right now. She's trying to launch her influencer career, and my salary alone isn't covering everything. The mortgage, her credit cards, the lifestyle she's used to. We could really use your help with expenses too. There it was. The real reason for the call. They were broke, and they wanted their live-in maid back. The maid who would also contribute financially to their household while being treated like a servant. I see, I said. So, what do you think? Can you be here by the weekend? Madison's having a dinner party, and she could really use your help in the kitchen. The seagull on my deck railing squawked once and flew away, soaring over the endless blue ocean. I envied its freedom, then realized I had the same thing now. David, I need to ask you something. Yeah. Do you love me? Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, he cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mom, what kind of question is that? Of course I mean, you're my mother. That's not what I asked. Do you love me? Not the idea of me, not what I can do for you. Me. More silence. Look, this is getting weird. Can you just answer the question? Are you coming back or not? I closed my eyes and felt the ocean breeze on my face. When I opened them again, I knew exactly what I needed to say.
No.
What do you mean, no? I mean no, David. I'm not coming back to be your wife's servant. I'm not coming back to be treated like garbage in my own home. I'm not coming back to be invisible unless you need something from me. Mom, you're being dramatic. Madison didn't mean those things she said. She was just stressed. Don't. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Don't you dare minimize what she said or how she said it. And don't pretend you weren't there, laughing while she humiliated me. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just. You were just what, David? Just enjoying watching your wife call your mother uneducated trash? Just having a good time while she threw me out of the house I'd lived in for 27 years? Just fine with her changing the locks so I couldn't come back. Look, maybe she went too far, but there is no but, son. There's no excuse for cruelty. There's no justification for treating family like that. And there's no reason I should subject myself to it again. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was harder, more demanding. More like Madison. You know what, Mom? Maybe Madison was right about you. Maybe you are just a bitter old woman who can't accept that things change. We offered you a place in our home, and you're throwing it back in our faces. You offered me a place as your unpaid domestic help. We offered you a family.
No, David.
You offered me the illusion of family in exchange for my labor and money. That's not the same thing.
Fine. Fine.
Don't come back. See if we care. Don't expect us to come running when you're old and sick and need someone to take care of you. The threat hung in the air between us. It was supposed to scare me, I think. Make me realize how much I needed them. How much I should be willing to tolerate in order to avoid being alone. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had Dorothy and Frank. I had my students at the literacy center. I had neighbors who waved when I walked by, and shopkeepers who knew my name. I had a life built on mutual respect and genuine affection. More than that, I had me, the real me. Not the diminished version I'd become in their house. Not the woman who apologized for existing and grateful for scraps of attention. I had the woman who could learn marine biology at 68, who could help adults discover the magic of reading, who could make friends and plant gardens and wake up every morning knowing she mattered. David, I said softly, I hope someday you understand what you've lost. Not the maid or the babysitter or the financial contributor. Your mother. A woman who loved you unconditionally for 35 years and would have done anything for you. I hope someday you realize what that was worth. I hung up before he could respond. 2 days later, Madison called. Listen here, you selfish old bitch, she started without preamble. I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now. David is a mess. We've got bills piling up, and I'm not about to let some bitter old woman destroy my marriage. I almost hung up, but something in her voice stopped me. Underneath the venom, I heard something else. Desperation. What do you want, Madison? I want you to stop filling David's head with guilt trips and manipulation. Come back to your job and keep your mouth shut. That's all anyone expects from you. My job. Cooking, cleaning, helping with expenses. Being useful instead of just taking up space. There was that word again. Useful. As if my value as a human being was determined by what I could do for other people. What if I said no? Madison's laugh was sharp and ugly. Then you'll die alone and forgotten. You think those people at your little beach community actually care about you? You're just a novelty to them. A project. Once the novelty wears off, you'll be right back where you started. Nobody and nothing. Her words were designed to hurt, and a few weeks ago, they might have worked. But sitting in my beautiful home, looking out at an ocean that stretched to infinity, surrounded by books I'd chosen and art I'd bought and plants I'd nurtured. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years.
Pity.
For her. Madison, I said gently, what happened to you? What the hell is that supposed to mean? What happened to make you so angry? So cruel? So convinced that the only way to feel good about yourself is to make other people feel small? I don't need some uneducated. There's that word again. Uneducated. What does that mean to you? That I didn't finish college? That I worked with my hands instead of sitting behind a desk? That I value kindness over credentials? It means you're beneath me. It means you don't deserve the same respect as people who've actually accomplished something with their lives. And what have you accomplished, Madison? Silence. You married my son. That's it. That's your great achievement. You convinced a good man to love you, and now you're using that love to justify treating his mother like garbage. That's not an accomplishment. That's just sad. You don't know anything about me or my life. I know you're calling me because you need something. I know you're desperate enough to insult someone you consider beneath you because you can't manage your own household. I know you're so insecure about your worth that you have to tear down a 68-year-old woman to feel powerful. Shut up. Just shut up. I know you're afraid. I'm not afraid of you. You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of being me. You're afraid of ending up alone, of not mattering, of being seen as worthless. So you're trying to push me into that role so you don't have to occupy it yourself. I could hear her breathing hard on the other end of the line. But here's what you don't understand, Madison. I'm not alone, and I'm not worthless. I spent 35 years believing I was only as valuable as what I could give to other people. You and David confirmed those fears, and for a brief moment, I accepted that definition of myself.
Good.
You should. But you were wrong. I'm not uneducated. I'm self-taught. I'm not trash. I'm a woman who worked 3 jobs to raise a son and never complained once. I'm not a pest. I'm someone who spent decades making other people's lives better, often at the expense of my own. Nobody cares about your sob story. You're right. Nobody should have to care about my story to treat me with basic human decency. That should be the default. Madison was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. Just come back. Please. I'll try to be nicer. Try to be nicer? I'll treat you better. I promise. There was something heartbreaking about that promise. Not because I believed it, but because she seemed to think it was enough. That trying to be nicer was some grand gesture that should overcome months of cruelty. Madison, why did you marry David? What? It's a simple question. Why did you marry my son? Because I love him.
Do you?
Or do you love what he represents? Stability? Respectability? Someone who'll take care of you. I love him. Then why are you willing to destroy his relationship with his mother? Why are you trying to isolate him from his family? People who love someone don't make them choose between their spouse and their parent. You are interfering with our marriage.
How?
By existing in the same house. By cooking meals and keeping things clean. By being available when he wanted to talk. How exactly was I interfering? Another long silence. You made him feel guilty, she said finally. Every time he looked at you, he remembered all the sacrifices you made for him. It made him feel like he owed you something. And there it was. The truth, finally. Madison wasn't threatened by my presence because I was interfering with their marriage. She was threatened because my very existence reminded David of what unconditional love looked like. Of what it meant to sacrifice for family without keeping score, to give without expecting anything in return, to love someone enough to work 3 jobs so they could have a better life. She was afraid he'd compare her love to mine and find hers lacking. She was probably right to be afraid. Madison, David doesn't owe me anything. I chose to make those sacrifices because I loved him. That's what parents do. We give everything we have to help our children build better lives than our own. Well, maybe that was stupid. Maybe it was. But it was also love. Real, unconditional, no strings attached love. The kind that doesn't keep score or demand payback or threaten to withdraw when things get difficult. Whatever. Just come back. David needs you. David is a grown man. He doesn't need his mother to cook his meals or clean his house or subsidize his lifestyle. What he needs is to figure out who he is when he's not depending on other people to take care of him. What about me? I need help. Then hire a housekeeper. Take a cooking class.
Get a job.
Learn to be self-sufficient instead of expecting other people to manage your life for you. I can't afford a housekeeper. Then you can't afford the lifestyle you're trying to maintain.
Scale back.
Live within your means. Grow up. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't regret them. Someone needed to tell Madison the truth, and David clearly wasn't going to do it. You're just bitter because your son chose me over you. Actually, Madison, I'm grateful. What? I'm grateful that you showed me exactly how little I was valued in that house. I'm grateful that you had the courage to say out loud what you both apparently thought of me. I'm grateful that you forced me to leave, because otherwise, I might have spent the rest of my life accepting scraps and calling it love. You're crazy. Maybe. But I'm also happy. For the first time in decades, I'm genuinely happy. I have friends who respect me, activities that fulfill me, and a home that brings me joy. I wake up every morning excited about the day ahead instead of dreading what demands will be placed on me. That won't last. Maybe not. But it's real right now, and that's more than I had in your house. Madison was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she whispered, "What if I apologized?" For what? For calling you names. For being mean. It was such a childish way to phrase it. For being mean. Like we were on a playground instead of discussing the systematic degradation of a human being. Madison, an apology is supposed to acknowledge the hurt you've caused and demonstrate. It's more specific. But why are you sorry? What do you mean? Are you sorry because you hurt me? Because you were wrong? Because you realize I deserved better treatment? Or are you sorry because the consequences of your actions are inconvenient for you? Silence. Madison, I need you to come back. That's not the same as being sorry. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't want you to say anything you don't mean. And clearly you don't mean any of it. I could mean it. If you came back, I could try to mean it. The desperation in her voice was almost painful to hear. She was drowning, and she thought I was her life preserver. But I'd been drowning too for years, and she'd been the one holding my head underwater. Madison, I can't come back. Not because I don't forgive you, but because I don't trust you. Trust isn't something you can promise to earn someday. It's built over time, through consistent actions. And your actions have shown me exactly who you are. People can change. Yes, they can. But they have to want to change for their own reasons, not because they need something from someone else. You want me to come back, so your life will be easier. That's not change. That's just convenience. What if I really changed? What if I became a better person? Then I'd be happy for you. And I'd still stay where I am. Why? Because I've built a life here, Madison. A real life, with people who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. I'm not giving that up to return to being your domestic help. But we're family. No, we're not. David and I are family, though he's made it clear that relationship is contingent on my usefulness to him. You and I are strangers who happen to end up in the same house for a while. That's not true, isn't it? Name 3 things you know about me that aren't related to housework or childcare. Silence. Name 1 thing you've ever asked me about myself. 1 conversation we've had about my interests, my dreams, my thoughts on anything that didn't directly affect you. More silence. You can't, because you've never seen me as a person. I've been furniture to you. Useful furniture that occasionally needed to be reminded of its place. I could learn. I could ask you things. Why would you want to? You've made it clear that you find everything about me distasteful. My education level, my background, my opinions, even my presence in the room. What's changed? I don't know. I just know that David is miserable without you, and I'm miserable trying to manage everything alone, and I don't know what else to do. Finally.
Honesty.
Madison, being miserable is not the same as being wrong. Sometimes we're miserable because we're finally experiencing the consequences of our choices. You chose to create a hostile environment for me. David chose to support you in that choice. Now you're both dealing with the results. So, you're just going to abandon us? I'm going to live my life. You two are adults. Figure out your own lives. But what if we can't? Then you'll learn and grow and become stronger. Or you won't, and you'll face the consequences of that too. Either way, it's not my responsibility to rescue you from problems you created. Madison started crying then. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen her use on David, but genuine, desperate sobs. I don't know how to do any of this, she whispered. I don't know how to cook or clean or manage money or take care of a house. My mother always had servants, and then I married David, and you were there to do everything. I've never had to be responsible for anything in my life. And there it was. The truth beneath all the cruelty and entitlement. Madison wasn't evil, just terrifyingly immature. She was a 30-year-old woman who'd never learned to take care of herself, lashing out at the world because it expected competence she'd never developed. Madison, you can learn all of those things.
How?
I'm too old to learn now. I almost laughed. Too old at 30. I'm taking marine biology classes online at 68. You can learn to cook at 30. But what if I'm bad at it? Then you'll be bad at it until you get better. That's how learning works. What if people judge me? Some will. Most won't care. The people whose opinions matter will admire you for trying. She cried harder. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of being alone. Of not being good enough. Of David realizing he deserves better than me. My heart softened despite everything she'd put me through. Fear makes people do terrible things sometimes. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains it. Madison, the way you've been treating people? David does deserve better than that. But the woman who can admit she's scared and wants to learn? She might be worth knowing. Will you help me?
No.
Why not? Because you need to learn to help yourself. And because I need to protect my own peace. But I don't know how. Start small. Pick one thing you want to learn and find a way to learn it. YouTube videos, community college classes, asking friends for advice. People learn new skills every day, Madison. You can too. What if I fail? Then you'll fail and try again. That's what everyone else does. We sat in silence for a while, her sniffling on one end and me listening to the waves on the other. I really am sorry, she said finally. Not just because I need you to come back. I'm sorry because what I said was cruel and you didn't deserve it. You're not trash and you're not uneducated. You're actually pretty smart and I was just angry because you made me feel stupid. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real. I could hear the difference. Thank you, I said. I accept your apology. Does that mean you'll come back?
No.
It means I forgive you for hurting me, but I'm still not willing to put myself back in a situation where it could happen again. What if I promised? Madison, promises are just words. I need to see changes, sustained over time, before I'd consider trusting you with my well-being again. How long would that take? The question revealed so much about how she viewed relationships. Like forgiveness and trust were transactions with clear timelines and deliverable outcomes. I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe never. Some damage can't be undone. That's not fair. Fairness would have been treating me with basic respect from the beginning. What you're experiencing now are consequences, not unfairness. Madison was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small and defeated. What am I supposed to do now? Grow up, I said gently. Learn to take care of yourself and your husband without expecting other people to sacrifice their dignity for your comfort. I don't know if I can. You can. You just don't want to because it's hard and uncomfortable and means admitting you've been wrong about some fundamental things. What if David leaves me? Then he leaves you. And you'll survive it, and eventually you'll be stronger for it.
How can you be so calm about that?
He's your son.
He is.
And I love him. But I can't control his choices, and I can't save him from the consequences of those choices. If his marriage fails because you're both too immature to handle adult responsibilities, that's something you'll both have to work through. Don't you want him to be happy? Of course I do. But David hasn't been truly happy since he married you. He's been stressed and defensive and increasingly cruel. If leaving you means he has a chance to remember who he used to be, then maybe that would be the best thing for everyone. You really hate me.
No, Madison.
I don't hate you. I pity you. And I feel sad that my relationship with my son became collateral damage in your refusal to grow up. I could grow up now. Then do it. Not for me, not to win David back, not to get me to return. Do it because you're 30 years old and it's time. Will you at least tell me how? I considered the question. Part of me wanted to hang up and wash my hands of both of them completely. But another part remembered the scared girl underneath all the cruelty. Start by taking responsibility for your own life. Get a job, even if it's not glamorous. Learn to cook basic meals. There are thousands of YouTube tutorials. Create a budget and stick to it. Stop expecting other people to manage your emotional and physical needs. What about David? What about him? How do I fix things with him? You don't. He fixes things with himself, or he doesn't. You can only control your own behavior. But what if he's still angry? Then he's angry. Sit with that discomfort instead of trying to make it go away immediately. Learn to tolerate difficult feelings without demanding that someone else fix them for you. This is really hard. Yes, it is. Most worthwhile things are hard. Madison sighed deeply. I wish I could go back and do everything differently. You can't, but you can do everything differently going forward. Will you ever forgive me? Really forgive me? I already have, Madison. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it wasn't that bad. It's about choosing not to carry the anger anymore because it's too heavy. Then why won't you come back? Because forgiveness and trust are different things. I can't forgive you for hurting me without trusting you not to hurt me again. How do I earn your trust back? You don't. You earn your own trust by becoming someone you can be proud of. You earn David's trust by treating him with genuine love instead of neediness. You earn your own respect by learning to take care of yourself. My trust isn't the prize, Madison. Your own self-respect is. We talked for another hour. Not about me coming back, but about practical things. How to make a budget. Where to look for jobs. How to have difficult conversations with David about their relationship. I found myself feeling something I hadn't expected. Hope. Not for my situation, which was already better than I'd ever imagined, but for hers. When we finally hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Not because I thought she'd actually change, that remained to be seen, but because I'd been able to extend compassion without sacrificing my boundaries. 3 months later, David called again. Mom. His voice was different this time. Quieter. More like the boy I'd raised. Hello, son. I owe you an apology. A real one. Okay. Madison and I have been going to counseling. Individual and couples. And I've been learning some things about myself that are uncomfortable. I waited. I've been treating you terribly for months. Years, maybe. Not just the day you left, but before that. I stopped seeing you as a person and started seeing you as a service. Someone who existed to make my life easier. That's very honest of you to admit. The therapist asked me to write down everything you'd sacrificed for me over the years. The jobs you worked, the things you went without, the opportunities you gave up, so I could have better ones. It was, God, Mom, it was pages and pages. And I never once thanked you for any of it. My throat tightened, but I didn't speak. I let Madison treat you like garbage because it was easier than standing up to her. I laughed when she insulted you because I was relieved the attention was off me. I threw you out of your own home because I was too cowardly to set boundaries with my wife. David. No, let me finish.
Please.
I need to say this. Okay. You deserved so much better for me. You deserved a son who protected you, who honored you, who made sure everyone in his life treated you with the respect you'd earned. Instead, you got a coward who was willing to sacrifice your dignity for his own comfort. I could hear him crying. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm ashamed of the man I became. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for saying that. Madison's been working hard too. Really working, not just promising to try. She got a job at a nonprofit. It doesn't pay much, but she likes the work. She's taking cooking classes and financial planning courses. She's becoming someone I can actually respect. I'm glad to hear that, I said, and I meant it. The thing is, Mom, we're getting divorced. The words hung in the air between us. I felt a complicated mix of emotions: sadness for David's pain, relief that he was finally making healthy choices, and something that might have been vindication. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Are you okay? Yeah, actually.
I think I am.
We both realized that we got married for the wrong reasons. She wanted security and status, and I wanted someone who would make me feel important. Neither of us was ready for the kind of partnership a real marriage requires. That's very mature of you both. It was Madison's idea, actually. She said she needed to figure out who she was as an independent person before she could be a good partner to anyone. I was angry at first, but she was right. I've been depending on other people to take care of me my whole life. First you, then her. I don't even know how to be alone. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely, I told him. Sometimes solitude is exactly what we need to grow. Yeah, I'm starting to understand that. Mom, I have another question for you. What's that? Would you be willing to see me sometime? Not to ask for anything, not to try to convince you to come back. Just to see me. To let me try to be the son you deserved all along. My heart clenched. This was what I'd wanted for so long. David choosing me, David fighting for our relationship, David recognizing my value. But now that it was happening, I felt cautious. Hopeful, but cautious. Where are you thinking? Maybe I could come visit you? I've never seen your new place. I'd like to see where you're living, meet your friends if you'd want me to. I want to see this new life you've built. David, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was when I lived with you and Madison. I'm not going to go back to being someone who exists solely to serve other people's needs. This version of me has opinions and boundaries and a life that doesn't revolve around taking care of anyone else. I know. And honestly, I'm excited to meet her. The real you, I mean. Not the version who felt like she had to shrink herself to fit into our house. It might be uncomfortable for you. I'm not going to pretend that what happened didn't matter, or that we can just go back to the way things were. I don't want to go back, Mom. I want to go forward. I want to build something new with you, something based on mutual respect instead of obligation. That sounds good, I said carefully. But it's going to take time. I understand. I'm willing to put in the time, however long it takes. We made plans for him to visit the following weekend. After I hung up, I sat on my deck for a long time, watching the waves and thinking about second chances. The truth was, I wanted to believe David had really changed. I wanted to believe that my son, the boy I'd loved unconditionally for 35 years, was still in there somewhere underneath the selfishness and entitlement. But I'd learned the hard way that wanting something doesn't make it true. Still, I was willing to find out. When David arrived that Saturday, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, but also somehow lighter. The defensiveness that had become his default expression was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine humility. "Your house is beautiful," he said, standing on my deck and looking out at the ocean. "I can see why you love it here." "Thank you. Would you like some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." "That would be great." We sat in my living room, decorated with things I'd chosen, filled with books I was reading and plants I was nurturing, and for the first time in years, we just talked. Not about his problems or his needs, or what I could do for him. We talked about my classes, my volunteer work, the friends I'd made. He asked questions and listened to the answers. Really listened. You seem happy, he said after I'd told him about my latest marine biology project. I am happy. I don't think I ever really thought about whether you were happy before. In the house, I mean. I just assumed you were because you never complained. I wasn't happy. I was content, sometimes when I felt useful. But I wasn't happy. Why didn't you ever say anything? I considered the question carefully, because I thought that was just what love looked like. Putting everyone else's needs before your own. Making yourself smaller, so other people could be bigger. I thought that was what good mothers did. That's not love. That's martyrdom. I'm learning the difference. David was quiet for a while, looking out at the ocean. I brought you something, he said finally, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. What is it? Letters. I've been writing them in therapy. Letters to you, saying all the things I should have said over the years. My therapist suggested I actually give them to you if you were willing to read them. I took the envelope. It was thick, heavy with pages of what looked like David's handwriting. You don't have to read them now, he said quickly. Or ever, if you don't want to. I wanted you to have them. Thank you. We spent the rest of the day together. David helped me in my garden, pulling weeds and listening while I explained the different plants I was growing. We walked on the beach, and he met Dorothy and Frank, who invited us both to dinner. Over Dorothy's homemade lasagna, I watched my son charm my friends with stories about his work and genuine interest in their lives. This was the David I remembered. The curious, thoughtful boy who'd asked a million questions and made friends wherever he went. The son I'd been proud to raise. When it was time for him to leave, we stood on my front porch in the golden light of sunset. Thank you for today, he said, for giving me a chance. Thank you for being worth the chance. Mom, I have one more thing to tell you. What's that? Madison found out about your inheritance. My blood ran cold.
How?
She hired a private investigator a few weeks ago, trying to find information she could use to force you to come back. The PI traced the money transfer when you bought this house. I see. She's not handling it well. She's angry that you had money all along and didn't help us with our financial problems. She feels betrayed. I almost laughed. Madison felt betrayed. And how do you feel about it? I asked. David was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I'm glad you didn't tell us. I'm glad you kept that to yourself because it means everything you did for me before was because you loved me, not because you had unlimited resources. And I'm glad you're using it to build a life that makes you happy instead of bailing us out of problems we created ourselves. Really? Really? Though I have to ask, $20 million? $20 million. He whistled low. Uncle Harold really did well for himself. Apparently so. You could have solved all our problems with a fraction of that money. Yes, I could have. But you chose not to. I chose not to reward cruelty with generosity. I chose not to enable two adults to avoid the consequences of their choices. I chose to use that money to build something positive instead of throwing it at something toxic. David nodded slowly. That was the right choice. I thought. What did you tell her? I told her that you don't owe us anything. That we forfeited any claim to your help when we treated you like garbage. And I told her that if she contacts you again demanding money, I'll consider it harassment and take appropriate action. I felt a surge of pride in my son. This was the man I'd hoped he'd become. Thank you for that. It's the least I can do. Actually, it's nowhere near the least I can do, but it's a start. He hugged me goodbye, really hugged me, not the perfunctory embrace I'd gotten used to, and drove away. I stood on my porch until his taillights disappeared, then went inside to read his letters. There were 17 of them, written over the course of 3 months. They chronicled his journey from defensiveness to understanding, from blame to accountability. He wrote about memories I'd forgotten. Times I'd worked double shifts so he could go on school trips, Nights I'd stayed up helping him with projects, sacrifices I'd made that had become so routine I'd stopped thinking of them as sacrifices. But more than that, he wrote about the person he wanted to become. The kind of son who protected his mother instead of enabling her abuse. The kind of man who stood up for what was right instead of what was convenient. The kind of person who earned love through his actions instead of demanding it as his due. The last letter was different from the others. Shorter, more direct.
Mom.
I know I can't undo the damage I've done to our relationship. I know that sorry isn't enough, and promises aren't worth much coming from me right now. I know that you've built a beautiful life without me, and you don't need me to complete it. But I hope that someday, when you think about having a son, the thought makes you smile instead of hurt. I hope that someday, I can be someone you're proud to call family again. Not because of what I can do for you, but because of who I am as a person. I love you. Not the way I've loved you before, the selfish, demanding, conditional way, but the way you loved me all those years.
Completely.
Unconditionally. Without keeping score. I hope that's enough to build something new on. Your son, David. I cried when I finished reading. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. My son was still in there, underneath all the damage. He was fighting his way back to the surface, and maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. 6 months later, David moved to a small apartment about an hour from my beach house. We started having dinner once a week, sometimes at my place, sometimes at his, sometimes at a restaurant halfway between. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't the same as before. It was better. David had learned to see me as a whole person instead of just his mother. He asked about my classes, my friends, my thoughts on current events. He shared his own struggles and victories without expecting me to fix or celebrate them for him. We developed the kind of adult relationship I'd always hoped we'd have. Madison, meanwhile, had not taken the news of my inheritance well. She'd called me twice more, demanding what she considered her fair share as family. When I refused to take her calls, she started sending letters. When I didn't respond to the letters, she showed up at my house. I was in my garden when she arrived, pulling weeds in the late afternoon sun. I heard a car door slam and looked up to see her marching up my front walk like she was heading into battle. "We need to talk," she announced. "No, we don't," I said calmly, continuing to weed around my tomato plants. "You can't just ignore me forever." "I'm not ignoring you. I'm making a conscious choice not to engage with you. There's a difference." Madison stomped into my garden, her designer heels sinking into the soft soil. "Do you have any idea what you've put me through? The stress? The financial hardship? The humiliation? I haven't put you through anything, Madison. You're experiencing the natural consequences of your own choices. I deserve part of that money." "Why?" "Because I'm family." "No, you're my son's soon-to-be ex-wife. You have no legal or moral claim to anything I own. I took care of you." I looked up from my gardening. "When?"
"What?"
"When did you take care of me? I cooked your meals, cleaned your house, did your laundry, and contributed to your expenses. What exactly did you do to take care of me?" I let you live with us. In my own house. The house I'd lived in for 27 years before you arrived." Madison's face was red with frustration. "You're being deliberately obtuse." "I'm being accurate."
"Fine."
"Maybe I wasn't always nice to you, but that doesn't mean you should let us struggle when you have more money than you could spend in a lifetime." "Madison, sit down." "What?" "Sit down. On the bench over there. I want to explain something to you." She looked like she wanted to refuse, but something in my tone made her comply. She perched on the edge of my garden bench, like she was ready to flee at any moment. $20 million is a lot of money," I began. "It's more than I ever dreamed of having. It's enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, help worthy causes, and still leave a substantial inheritance to David." Madison's eyes lit up at the mention of David's inheritance. "But it's not enough to fix everything that's wrong with your life. It's not enough to make you happy if you're fundamentally unhappy with yourself. It's not enough to save a marriage that was built on the wrong foundation. And it's certainly not enough to buy back my dignity after you destroyed it." I said I was sorry. You said words that sounded like an apology. But sorry isn't a magic word that erases harm, Madison. Sorry is supposed to be the beginning of changed behavior, not the end of consequences. What do you want me to do? Grovel? Beg? Humiliate myself? I don't want you to do anything. I want you to leave me alone and build your own life. With what? I don't have money. I don't have skills. I don't have anything. You have time. You have intelligence. You have the ability to learn and grow and become better than you are right now. Those are the only things you actually need. That's easy for you to say. You have $20 million. Madison, I was happy before I knew about the money. I was happy living in this house, taking my classes, volunteering at the literacy center, spending time with my friends. The money didn't make me happy. The life I built made me happy. The money just made it more secure. You could make my life secure too. At what cost? Your self-respect? Your ability to grow and learn and become independent? Your chance to discover who you really are when you're not depending on other people to solve your problems. Madison was crying now, ugly tears that smeared her carefully applied makeup. I don't know how to be independent. I've never had to be. Then learn. Start small.
Get a job, any job.
Learn to cook one meal really well, then learn another. Figure out how to balance a checkbook. Take a class in something that interests you. Do one thing every day that makes you slightly more capable than you were the day before. What if I fail? Then you'll fail and try again. That's what everyone else does, Madison. That's what I did when I had to learn to live without David's father. That's what I'm doing now, learning to live for myself instead of for other people. But it's so hard. Yes, it is. Most worthwhile things are hard. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life being dependent on other people's willingness to take care of you. And as you've learned, that willingness can disappear overnight. Madison wiped her nose with the back of her hand, looking younger and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. What if I really changed? What if I became the kind of person who deserved help? Then you'd be the kind of person who didn't need it. That doesn't make sense. Think about it. The people who deserve help the most are usually the ones who ask for it the least. They're too busy helping themselves and others to demand that the world take care of them. Madison was quiet for a long time, staring out at the ocean. I hate you, she said finally. I know. Not because of the money. Because you make me feel small and stupid and worthless. Madison, I don't make you feel anything. Your feelings belong to you. But I think what you're really angry about is that I reflect back to you all the ways you've been small and stupid and cruel. And instead of using that reflection to motivate change, you're trying to destroy the mirror. I don't know how to change. Yes, you do. You just don't want to because it's hard and uncomfortable and means admitting you've been wrong about fundamental things. Will you help me?
No.
Why not? Because helping you would actually hurt you. It would rob you of the chance to discover your own strength and capability. It would keep you dependent and immature. And frankly, I don't trust you enough to invest that kind of energy in you. What if I proved you could trust me? Then you'd be proving it to yourself, not to me. My trust isn't the prize, Madison. Your own self-respect is. She stood up abruptly. This is pointless. You're never going to help me, no matter what I do. You're right. I'm never going to enable you or bail you out or solve your problems for you. But that doesn't mean I want you to fail. I hope you succeed. I hope you figure out how to build a life you can be proud of. I just hope you do it without expecting other people to sacrifice their peace for your comfort. Madison started to leave, then turned back. David really loves you, you know. He talks about you all the time. About how strong you are, how proud he is of the life you've built. It makes me jealous. Why? Because nobody's ever been proud of me like that. Nobody's ever looked at me and seen strength or capability or anything worth admiring. Maybe because you've never given them anything to admire.
Yeah.
Maybe. She walked back to her car without another word. I watched her drive away, then went back to my garden. I had tomatoes to tend, and the late afternoon light was perfect for the work. 2 years later, I got a card in the mail. The return address was from a city 3 states away, and the name in the corner was Madison's. Inside was a photo of her in scrubs, standing next to a hospital bed with an elderly patient. She was smiling. Not the calculated smile I remembered, but something genuine and warm. The note inside was brief. Mrs. Chun, I wanted you to know that I became a nursing assistant. It took me a year of classes and a lot of hard work, but I love it. I'm good at taking care of people, and I'm finally earning the respect I used to demand. I'm not writing to ask for anything or to try to convince you that I've changed enough to deserve your forgiveness. I'm writing because I wanted to thank you. You were right about everything. I did need to learn to take care of myself. I did need to grow up. I did need to stop expecting other people to manage my life for me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the best. I finally understand the difference between earning something and demanding it. I hope you're well and happy. Madison. I put the card on my refrigerator next to photos of my literacy students and my marine biology class. It felt right there, among the evidence of growth and learning and second chances. David came for dinner that weekend, as he did most weekends now. We cooked together. He'd learned to make a decent pasta sauce, and I taught him my grandmother's bread recipe. Over dinner, I showed him Madison's card. She sent this to you? He asked, studying the photo. Yesterday. How do you feel about it? Proud of her. And grateful that she found her way to something meaningful. Do you think she really changed? I think she changed enough to write this card without asking for anything in return. That's more change than I expected. David nodded. I'm glad she's doing well. I'm glad we're both doing well. Are you happy, son?
Yeah, Mom.
I really am. My life is smaller than it used to be, but it's more real. I have work I care about, friends who actually know me, and a relationship with you that's based on mutual respect instead of obligation. And you don't miss the old life? The bigger house, the financial security Madison's family provided? I miss feeling safe, he admitted. But I don't miss feeling like a fraud. I don't miss pretending to be someone I wasn't, or accepting cruelty, because it came packaged with comfort. We cleaned up dinner together, David washing dishes while I dried and put them away. The evening light slanted through my kitchen windows, turning everything golden. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? Really happy? I considered the question as I hung up the dish towel. Was I happy? I thought about my morning walks on the beach, my afternoon classes, my evening conversations with Dorothy and Frank. I thought about my garden, thriving under my care. I thought about my literacy students, slowly gaining confidence as they learned to read. I thought about David, standing in my kitchen, asking genuine questions about my well-being. Yes, I said. I'm really happy, even without us? Even after everything that happened. Son, I'm not happy despite what happened. I'm happy because of what happened. If you and Madison hadn't pushed me out, I might have spent the rest of my life accepting scraps and calling it love. I might never have discovered who I am when I'm not defined by what I can do for other people. So you're grateful it happened? I'm grateful for where it led me. The cruelty was still wrong, and the pain was still real. But the outcome has been better than I ever imagined possible. David hugged me then, and I felt the last of my anger dissolve. Not because he deserved forgiveness, though he'd certainly earned it, but because I deserved to be free of the weight I'd been carrying. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. That night, after David left, I sat on my deck watching the stars emerge over the ocean. $20 million had changed my life, but not in a way most people would expect. It hadn't made me happy. It had given me the security to discover what happiness actually felt like. Happiness, I'd learned, wasn't about having more money or a bigger house or people who needed you. Happiness was about knowing your own worth, setting boundaries that protected your peace, and surrounding yourself with people who saw you as a whole person rather than a collection of useful services. Happiness was about choosing yourself, even when, especially when, everyone else expected you to choose them instead. I pulled out my phone and started typing a text to Dorothy. Want to take that pottery class together next week? I think it's time I learned to make something beautiful with my hands. Her response came back almost immediately. I thought you'd never ask. See you Monday at 9 a.m. I smiled and put my phone away. Tomorrow I would tend my garden, work with my students, and live the life I'd built from scratch at 68 years old. I would wake up in my own home, surrounded by things I'd chosen, accountable to no one but myself. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I belonged. And I had $20 million to make sure I could stay there. But more importantly, I had something worth more than money. The knowledge that I was enough all by myself, just as I was. The woman who had been called uneducated trash was gone. In her place was someone who knew her own value and refused to accept anything less than respect. It had taken me 68 years to learn that lesson. It was worth every single day of the wait. 5 years later, the invitation arrived on cream-colored paper, addressed in Madison's careful handwriting. She was getting married to Marcus, the paramedic she'd been dating for 2 years. The wedding would be small, she wrote, just close friends and family. She hoped I would come. I stared at the invitation for a long time, thinking about the woman who'd once called me uneducated trash and the woman who now worked double shifts caring for elderly patients. The woman who'd once demanded I solve her problems and now had built a life through her own effort and determination. David found me reading it when he came for our weekly dinner. You going? He asked, setting down groceries for the meal we'd cooked together. I'm thinking about it. What's holding you back? Nothing really. I think I'm just surprised that she invited me.
Why?
Your family. I looked at my son, who'd grown into a man I was genuinely proud to know. Are we? Family?
Yeah, Mom.
We are. Not the old kind of family, where people took each other for granted and used guilt as currency. The new kind, where people choose each other every day and show up with respect. 2 weeks later, I sat in the back row of a small chapel, watching Madison walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. She looked radiant, not the calculated beauty I remembered, but the glow of someone who'd found her purpose and peace. During the reception, she approached my table. Thank you for coming, she said simply. Thank you for inviting me. I almost didn't. I thought you might refuse. I almost did. But David convinced me that families show up for each other. Are we family? She asked, echoing my conversation with David. I think we might be. The chosen kind. She smiled then, and for the first time since I'd known her, it reached her eyes. I have something for you, she said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with a single charm, a lighthouse. I learned about lighthouses in nursing school, she explained. They stand strong through every storm, and they guide people home safely. That's what you did for me, even when I couldn't see it. I fastened the bracelet around my wrist, and as I did, I realized something profound had happened. The story that began with cruelty and rejection had transformed into something beautiful. Not because the pain was erased, but because it had been alchemized into wisdom, strength, and ultimately, a deeper kind of love. Looking around the reception, at David laughing with Marcus, at Madison helping an elderly guest to her chair, at Dorothy and Frank who'd driven 3 hours to celebrate with us, I felt the deep satisfaction of a story well told. Not the story I'd planned, but the one I'd needed to live. Sometimes the best chapters begin when we think the book is ending. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the worst moments. Sometimes we have to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover, everything we actually needed. I was 73 years old, sitting in a room full of people who chose to love me not for what I could do for them, but for who I was. I had a fortune that gave me security, work that gave me purpose, and relationships that gave me joy. But most importantly, I had myself, whole, complete, and unashamed. The woman who had been called uneducated trash had become the lighthouse in her own storm. And that, I thought as I watched my chosen family celebrate around me, was worth more than $20 million. It was worth everything. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, transformation, and finding your worth, please like and subscribe for more inspiring tales of people who refuse to let others define them. Your support helps me share stories that remind us all that it's never too late to choose yourself and build the life you deserve.